Welcome back to another episode of Talk Bridal to Me. I am Anna Muma here today with Sydney Ciampini with Sydney Ciampini Beauty Therapy. She is a licensed esthetician and does lymphatic drainage and massage in Spokane. Welcome, Sydney.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yes. I want to jump right in today because this topic is so interesting to me. When I came across your page, I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like this would be a really good topic for brides just to know about and just the everyday woman. So I know that you had made a post on Instagram a while ago about women just saying, I feel so heavy. Tell us a little bit about the kind of the common thread and complaint that your clients come to you with.
Yeah, absolutely. So the heaviness I think that I hear a lot from my clients, it really isn't ever like a weight issue. And I think a lot of times that's kind of what we jump to, or even, kind of assuming that that's what it has to be, that it's a weight issue or weight gain or a fat problem. And I have found that most of the time it's not. I think that heaviness that a lot of us experience is more so internal. There's a lot of like stagnation that can occur when our lymph system is backed up and stagnant. And so, I think the body works really cyclically and really beautifully in sync when it's working well. And when it's not, then that's kind of where we get that whole body stagnation and that really heavy feeling.
That makes sense. So we often get that stagnant feeling. I know there are times where I'm like, I just feel heavy. And I feel like sometimes it's digestion, other things like that. But you do such a special type of massage. I know traditional massage generally works towards muscles, but you target the lymphatic system. Like, how does that work?
Exactly. So, Brazilian lymphatic drainage is a lot different than traditional massage.
Okay.
Because, like you said, we're not targeting the muscle. My focus is never going to be on the muscle. It's strictly working to kind of push that fluid retention that we're experiencing. It's that fluid that sits between the tissues. And pushing that towards the lymph nodes so that they can do their job, filter out that cellular waste and those toxins. And then that gets kind of excreted in different ways, mostly through our urine. So that's part of the detox process with this detox massage. So very different than traditional massage. And the massage looks a little bit different too. It's a lot more dynamic, a little bit firmer in some ways. I move a little quicker in some ways. So it just looks a lot different and it'll feel different. If you've experienced it, it feels different because we're not going down to that muscle. We're not working through that. We're not kneading anything. We're just strictly working on pushing that fluid where we want it to go.
Yeah. Do you find that people hold fluid in different places? Like, is it kind of a unique approach per person, or do you kind of have like a systematic, like a routine for every individual?
Yeah. So obviously every person's different. I think a lot of us, we all hold fluid in different ways. And I think that's largely genetic.
Yeah.
So I definitely take a very tailored approach to each client. But there's a system for sure on, how to best go about that. But I work best intuitively. So, talking with my client is like step one and seeing kind of like where they feel like they want a little bit of that extra attention to. And then me kind of working on them and working intuitively in that way. So I do take a little bit of extra time on those places where I feel like need it. If there's more stagnation there. And then I do use two different methods. So I use my hands. So it's all manual. And then I have an endermology machine, which is like negative pressure, similar to cupping.
Okay. Yes. I've seen that in some of your videos.
Yeah.
Where you kind of go over the skin and it just looks so interesting to me.
Yeah, it's really cool. And honestly, it's kind of the cherry on top to all the manual stuff.
Yeah. How neat.
Yeah.
Wow. Do people feel a difference right away afterwards, or is it does it take time for the body to detox?
Great question. So typically my clients will come off the table and feel a lot lighter. It's really cool how that works too. And sometimes I'll show them if they're retaining quite a bit of fluid. I start with the legs. So sometimes I will show them, I'll do one of their legs and kind of hold off on doing the other and have them lift their legs. And a lot of times you can feel like a weight difference and you can see it too, depending on how much fluid retention they have.
Wow.
Yeah, so typically, a lot of them will stand up off the table at the end. I'll come back in the room after they're dressed and they'll say, "I feel so good," or "I feel so light." And sometimes it takes a little bit longer. Typically, the detox period and that time period where you're still kind of draining
Mhm.
and reaping the benefits of the treatment is about 48 hours. So
Okay.
at that 48-hour mark is usually when you're going to feel your best.
Yeah. How long do people usually feel good afterwards before they need to come back in again for another massage?
Yes. So for most people, and again, it just depends,
Yeah.
everybody's different, but for most people, it's like 10 to 14 days. I'd say like a
Okay.
week and a half to 2 weeks, typically, especially if it's your first time. There may be a little bit less of like that really super light feeling.
Yeah.
Just because your body, we're kind of training the body on what to do and how to respond,
Wow.
especially if you've been dealing with a lot of inflammation. But it's very lifestyle dependent. So, taking into account what you're doing on a day to day
Mhm.
basis um, to make sure that you're not taking in a lot of inflammation, whether that's through diet or lifestyle, in other ways.
Mhm.
So that's super important too in that time period after a treatment.
Yes. Well, let's talk about that for a second because that was one of my questions. I was laying in
Awesome.
bed last night going, I wonder, like, what are things that we can do in between the massage to kind of create some longevity and to kind of have that lifestyle where we're not, putting so much inflammation back into our body?
Right. Yeah. So, what we can do at home, because everybody likes going in for a massage, and I
Yeah.
think it feels really, really good. And it's kind of like a kickstart to feeling really good right off the bat. But obviously, the lymphatic system is largely lifestyle dependent. So, what we're doing at home is the most important. It's kind of like anything, like personal training,
Mhm.
like what you're doing at home matters more than going in. But it is really, really great for that like kickstart. But lifestyle stuff at home, it all just matters, I think, how much fluid we're getting, how hydrated we are. That's like number one. I think that should be everybody's first priority.
Mhm.
And more so a focus on like the quality of the water that we're intaking every day and not just, focusing on getting a gallon of water. What kind of water are you drinking? What's the filtration process? Are you kind of stripping that water of all the good stuff too when you're, taking out the chlorine and those other things that we don't want
Mhm.
in the water?
Mhm.
So I really stress making sure that we're getting electrolytes throughout the day. So hydration would be number one, and it really is super impactful on the lymphatic system.
Mhm.
And then movement is the second thing. So as much as I love like a body gua sha, dry brushing, those types of things, products, I think we need to put more emphasis on what we're doing day
Mhm.
to day as far as movement and food and hydration.
Yeah. What are some of the top foods that we might be guilty of that give us the
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think the biggest issue is just processed food.
yeah.
Because when it comes down to it, the lymphatic system, clearing out the lymphatic system, getting rid of that fluid retention,
Yeah.
what we're doing is helping the body deal with inflammation.
Mhm.
And when you're eating a lot of processed foods or even just foods that maybe individually aren't agreeing with you,
Yeah.
whether you have like an allergy or an intolerance, all of that, like the bloating,
Mhm.
that is, and digestive issues, those are major inflammatory responses. So I think a lot of people kind of put that out of their mind. Um, but I think we need to be paying closer attention to that
Yes.
because any inflammatory response that we're getting in the body is our body saying, we don't like this, and trying to kind of fight and deal with that.
Mhm.
And that is where we see a lot of that fluid retention happen. So, being aware of that, kind of just trying to eat healthier is better, and paying attention to what causes that inflammatory response for
Yes.
you.
Exactly. Well, and everybody is so different.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know I have things that I can't eat that other people can, and they do fine with that. And
Yeah.
there's no rhyme or reason as to why the body has an inflammatory response to one food and someone else might not have that as well.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I had a client recently who was talking to me about that, just knowing that veggies are super good for you. And
Mhm.
she was telling me that she gets super, super bloated from
Mm.
eating her veggies, but she's been doing it every single day because she knows it's good for you. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
what veggies are those? And she's kind of telling me. And we like had a really good discussion during her
Yeah.
service. And she was like, wow, I probably shouldn't be eating that then,
Yeah.
just, and I think that's the other thing is they were raw veggies. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of people have issues with eating raw veggies. It does cause like an inflammatory response and
Yeah.
a digestive issue a lot of times. So that was like super eye opening for her too, doing what we think is good for us. And,
Yep.
she thought it was good for her, but not, kind of pushing away that. Um,
The body's response. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
I know. I get migraines from broccoli.
Wow. Yeah.
And it's just like that random thing, and I happen to be allergic to rice. But, like, that's not what
Yeah.
a doctor would say. They'd be like, "No, you're fine." But I'm like, I
Exactly.
know my body and I know the response that it gives me, and even though it's delicious, I'm not gonna eat it
Yeah.
because it makes me not feel good.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I
It's,
it's no, you're good. I think all those different things that people can do too, like, I have a hard time eating a lot of the harder, um, raw vegetables, like carrots and things like that just don't digest well for me, and so I got it on Amazon. I was like, "I wonder if they sell this, like, in a powdered form," and they do.
okay.
It's like freeze-dried carrots, and they're just ground down,
Oh,
and
I
so I'm
love that.
like, "Hey, there you go. I'm still getting the vitamins, but you don't have to have it in the raw form. Like, we can get it in those other ways and still be getting those vitamins and nutrients if
Yeah.
your body is kind of having an inflammatory response to just the breaking down of the fiber."
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a really good point. And, more so about the raw veggies, we have to also think how our system works and how those
Mhm.
intestines are trying to break down food. It's kind of like a crunching like this. And so with the raw veggies, them being like hard and cold, it just causes more of that like crunch to happen with, not a lot of happenings. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of air that builds up and some other things. So, just knowing a little bit more about the digestive system, I think will help in, you know, being more self-aware with our own diet.
Absolutely. How did you get started in all this?
Yeah. Well, my background is a little bit different. So I am a licensed master esthetician. So I was doing, my aesthetic thing, and I also was doing kind of at the same time. I worked in marketing, and I worked for a company that specifically dealt with aesthetic practices. So we were, marketing and doing social media and things like that for med spas,
Mm.
dermatology offices, and plastic surgery offices. So that's where a lot of my background comes in, as far as the aesthetic stuff. And then in, being a master esthetician, there's just a lot more training that happens with that, and a lot more hours put in. So a bit more about the lymphatic system too, just in school.
Mhm.
So that was fun for me. And when I got into the aesthetic thing, doing my esthetician stuff, I really loved doing the lymphatic drainage on the face and neck. And that's where the majority of our lymph nodes actually are. So,
Yes.
yeah, a lot of people don't know that. But I was really interested in doing another certification for that. And as I was looking into it, I had a really good friend of mine say, "Oh my gosh, you have to look into this." And she showed me the Brazilian lymphatic drainage where, it's whole body and you're getting all of those benefits and more. And at the time, I didn't realize how impactful lymphatic drainage was on the whole body. And as soon as I saw, I was like, oh, that's exactly what I want to do.
Mm.
And, it just so happened to kind of fill this gap in the market here where we live. So it
Yeah,
was perfect. And I love it so much.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
When I've seen your before and after photos where you
Hmm.
show a torso and you can see the inflammation, and then afterwards, all of a sudden, just, I mean, they've lost inches.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's really a beautiful visual, those before and afters.
Mhm.
I don't love to, blast before and afters
Sure.
because I don't want anyone to think that this is like a weight loss method or a quick fix because it's so much more than that. And with this treatment, we're not it's not a weight loss treatment.
Mm-hmm.
We're not losing any fat and we're not losing any weight. What we're doing is strictly moving that fluid out. So
Yeah.
those before and afters show that fluid being moved out.
Yeah.
So just really cool. And I love like being able to show that visual.
Yes. Well, and it brings such a physical and visual response to something that's happening inside of our body.
Right.
Because I know years ago I had to go on steroids for a medical issue,
Mm.
and at the time I didn't think that I was retaining a lot of fluid, but then I look back at photos and I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
My face was puffed up, everything was just puffier. And I know, especially as women, like around cycles and things like that, I'll notice fluid retention. Are there times of the month where, especially as women, it's good to be able to go in and get that lymphatic massage that helps with things like PMS or, bloating and things like that? Or is there not really a link?
No, there's definitely a link. So that was a really great question. And I do get that a lot from my clients, or they'll say like, "Oh, like I booked my, treatment for this time, but I just realized like I'll be on my cycle or, whatever
Mm-hmm.
the case is." And I do think that's another one of those things where it goes back to the individual. So we're all different. We all have a very different like set of hormones.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. And I think that's something that kind of it's up to you to kind of decide when is best for you. But there's no issues at all with, working on a client when they're on their period or at certain times of the month. All of it is beneficial. So if you find that you retain fluid at certain times of the month, usually it's like that week before or like that
Mm-hmm.
10 days before. That's pretty typical. That is a great time to come in because you just feel better. So,
Yes.
after the treatment, you're going to feel a lot lighter. And I have also found that doing that like abdomen massage, like in that, PMS time or like
Mm-hmm.
during the menstrual cycle can actually be really, really helpful in reducing cramps and
Mm-hmm.
pain and discomfort. It just kind of gives you this very light feeling, even just through the abdomen. So it helps a lot during the menstrual cycle and like that PMS time.
Yes. I could think of so many women who benefit from
Absolutely.
that, myself included.
Yeah,
Where
yeah.
I look in the mirror and I'm like, "What is happening?" And then I look at my little tracker app and I'm
Uh-huh.
like, "Okay, now we see."
Exactly. Yeah, it is wild, I think it like changes like the way your face looks
Yep.
too. Yeah, definitely. I think we've all been there and yeah, I do have quite a few clients who will come to me specifically at certain times of the month just because they feel better and I
Yes.
think that's priceless.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Is there a time that we shouldn't be getting a lymphatic massage? I know you had made a post a while ago about when you're ill and things like that.
Mhm.
Talk to us about why that might not be a good idea.
Yeah, so a lot of people don't realize that when you get a lymphatic drainage massage, you're activating those lymph nodes and you're saying like, "Okay, wake up." And then we're pushing that fluid toward the lymph nodes to give it that really good kickstart and start filtering out what it needs to filter out and get back to doing its job really, really well. But the lymphatic system is also a huge part of our immune system.
Mhm.
So when we do that, if we're coming down with something or we're fighting infection or our lymph nodes are swollen, that can actually exacerbate symptoms and exacerbate illness. So even just a cold and flu can get worse and we can feel a lot worse having that lymphatic drainage done during that time. Because we just need to rest and allow our
Mhm.
lymphatic system to do what it knows to do. And we're also we're pushing that fluid around the entire body. So if you're sick or if you're coming down with something, skip the lymphatic drainage
Mhm.
and also don't do any on yourself because I do feel like a lot of people have been told or they feel
Yes.
like they should start, massaging those swollen lymph nodes on their neck. Don't do that. You'll make it worse. And just allow your body to do what it knows to do. And after your symptoms have subsided, come in and have your treatment and
There you go.
kind of drain all that out. But definitely don't do it during.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do people typically feel like if they're coming in and they're healthy and they do a treatment with you, do they feel any like feelings of ugh afterwards. Because I know for me,
Mhm.
I've had regular massages in the past, and sometimes I'll feel a little bit like tired and like my body is just trying to, push something out. I don't know. I haven't always enjoyed how I have felt after a traditional massage. Do people feel like they experience that with a lymphatic massage, or is it all pretty positive?
Yeah, no. So there's so many varying degrees.
Yes.
Everybody's different, but there are definitely people that I'd probably say if I had to put like a number on it, like a ratio, I'd
Yeah.
say like 30/70s. Like 30% of people I think will feel some of those detoxing effects right after. And normally that's just in that 48-hour period.
Sure.
Sometimes it's a lot less. But yeah, you're ultimately it's a detox massage. So we are clearing out a lot of that fluid. There's toxins that have been sitting in that fluid, and we're detoxing. So yeah, there are a few clients who have felt like they've been hit by a bus afterwards,
Yes,
and
that
then,
would probably be me.
yeah, yeah, and if I have found that it is similar if you have had, like, a traditional massage, and when you get those, you kind of have that, like, feeling like, "Oh, I just need to lay down for a few
Yes.
hours." That kind of transfers over to this as well, and that's pretty typical for, like, body work in general.
Mhm.
If you are storing a lot of inflammation, then, I think you do kind of have to go through that detox
Yes.
process. But regardless of if you're dealing with like those detoxing symptoms, which would be like tiredness, grogginess, that like headache, even
Mhm.
nausea, that's all in the realm of normal. But if you're not having any detox symptoms, you're still getting the benefit of
Yes.
the treatment. So I know that's another thing. Some of my clients are like, "Ugh," they wanted the detox symptoms because they felt like, it would work better if
Right.
they had the detox symptoms. But again, it's you're still getting all the benefits. You just didn't have to go through
Yeah.
the
Lucky you.
yeah,
It's like
exactly.
being pregnant without morning sickness.
Right. Yeah,
You're
you're
like,
still
you're
very much
still
pregnant.
pregnant, but you're not having the symptoms.
Yeah, best case scenario,
Yeah,
really.
that sounds perfect to me.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. For brides who might want to come into you
Mhm.
to be able to do something like this just to feel better for their wedding day, do you have a typical timeline that you would recommend for somebody to do that?
Yes. So I'm really glad you asked this. So it's a little bit different for brides, especially if you've never had something like this done, which
Sure.
a lot of us haven't. This is new, especially to this area. It's not new in other cultures, but it's new here, and kind of bringing this to the States and bringing this to Spokane. It's been fun, but there's been, most of my clients have never had it done. So I do like to tell people who are coming in for the first time, if you have an event coming up, especially like your wedding day, which is going to be the most beautiful day for you, the most
Mhm.
special day, you want to definitely try this before, well in advance of your wedding day. So I say, like, come in once, a month or 2 months before, somewhere around that time period, so you can kind of get to know how your body best responds to this treatment. Like we were just talking about with the detoxing effects, you don't want to feel like you're detoxing when you're standing at the altar or,
Absolutely.
having to deal with the rehearsal dinner and any of that. So I always recommend just for you to be on the safe side to come in well in advance before your wedding to kind of know how your body responds. And then
Yes.
when you're ready and you feel like, you know what to expect the next time, I'd say 48 hours is best. Because like I was telling you with that draining period and that detoxing period, it
Mhm.
is right around that 48-hour mark where you're really feeling your best, and you really have really good mental clarity. So that's the thing I love most about this treatment is that overall lightness. It extends
Mm.
to the mental as well. So you're feeling really, really light mentally, which I think is really important on a day like
Yes.
your wedding to just feel very much, clear minded
Yes.
and worry free.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For the bride to be able to get the most out of her treatment the week before her wedding, what are some things that she might do or avoid
Mm.
to increase her lymphatic health?
Yeah. So again, largely lifestyle dependent. It just goes back to trying to make sure that we're limiting any inflammatory effects in the body. So obviously, things like doing the sauna, doing red light therapy,
Mm.
dry brushing, all of that is really great. But just making sure, more importantly, that we're very well hydrated.
Mm-hmm.
Because even the slight dehydration in the body can cause that lymph fluid to become stagnant, and
Mm-hmm.
that's when it stops flowing really well because it's a river through the
Right.
body. It doesn't have its own regulatory pump. We are the
Yeah.
regulatory pump lifestyle, what we're doing or not doing. So even being slightly dehydrated can cause major stagnation of that lymph fluid,
Mm-hmm.
and start giving us that kind of like buildup where we start to feel that heaviness and that puffiness and
Mm-hmm.
not our best, foggy minded, all of that. Going for regular walks, eating really well, I'd say, eating lighter, more protein focused than anything, avoiding things that cause like bloating, or that any digestive issues too.
Sure.
That's going to be your most important. Lifestyle is always at the forefront.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love that.
Yes. Yeah. Because really, like we're trying to heal the whole body. Um, and I think a lot of times with certain services or treatments, you that's the fix.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't like saying that to my clients.
Yeah.
I want them to be able to, start extending that period of time, that they're coming to see me, and eventually just coming because they just love the feeling.
Yes.
But their lymphatic system is working really well. We're helping balance those hormones, boost that metabolism. And that's all long-term effects.
Yes. Talk to us a little bit about sleep and stress. Does
Yeah,
that like inhibit the lymphatic system at all?
absolutely. So stress and, lack of sleep, it has a huge correlation on the
Mm.
lymphatic system with just that inflammatory effect. Really, it all goes back to that. So, if we're stressed out, if we're not sleeping, it's all a cortisol buildup.
Yes.
And that causes major inflammation in the body. And then you get that, like the foggy headedness.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's usually when clients start to be like, "Oh, okay, that's when I started feeling, really crappy."
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, stress is huge. Once you leave your treatment, that's one of the things I try to, stress to my clients. No pun intended.
No.
But I try to, tell them, make sure that, you're taking time for you.
Yeah.
And it's not just because, self-care.
Sure.
Um, it's really going back to healing the entire body. And if you're in, toxic relationships or allowing, certain levels of stress in your
Yeah.
life, that comes right back around and affects all our other systems, including the lymphatic system.
Yes.
And you're kind of at square one again. So, that is a huge part of it. Lessening the stress and that cortisol buildup in our
Mm-hmm.
lives, getting lots of really good sleep. I personally like to track my sleep, and it's helped me a lot just knowing kind of like where that threshold is for me,
Mm.
like best time for me to go to bed and best time for me to wake up. And if I've done like the sauna the night before, I've noticed like that I do sleep better or deeper.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, having a lymphatic drainage massage, better and deeper sleep. So,
Wow.
being able to kind of get a good like reader
Yes.
on you,
Yes.
because we're all individual and things work differently, but knowing what works for you, is super important,
Yes.
when it comes to like lessening stress and helping with sleep, but very, very closely related to lymphatic health.
Absolutely. Well, and I want to talk about your self care for a second
Yeah.
because I love the things that you do for yourself. I know that you said you get regular facials, like you get your brows done. You have your nails, your permanent jewelry, and you talk about kind of just having these habits around self care to where you feel good. Just from a curiosity point of view, like tell us a little bit of kind of what that looks like for you.
Yeah. So it's been a journey, the self-care journey. Um, I was once a stay-at-home mom. I have 2
Mm.
little kids, so, my time was once very much stretched a lot thinner. Um, but over the years, I've really gotten to a place where I now know the importance of kind of pouring back into yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and having that cup to pour out of.
Yes.
But yeah, I love self-care. I think it helps with confidence a lot. It reminds us that we can't pour from an empty cup.
Yes.
And sometimes those things are like they do seem more superficial, the brows, the hair, the facials and stuff. And sometimes they're not. Sometimes it's like making sure that I'm, making an appointment with my therapist every once in a while,
Yes.
or, meeting with a really good girlfriend for coffee, just things like that, or
Mm.
doing something with my kids, like taking them somewhere where I know
Yeah.
they'll love. So it really is all encompassing, but I think having like a really good balance in self-care is super important. Um, but yeah, I tell my clients that for sure, because I think a lot of my clients are moms, or I think it's just in general, we have super busy lives today.
Mhm.
Really, really busy. So slowing down to be like, I deserve to spend a little bit of this time on myself, the
Yes.
little bit of time that I have, to do just something for myself. We
Yeah.
don't always need to be going and doing and being productive,
Mhm.
but sometimes we can just rest and, do something really nice for ourselves.
Mhm.
So I think that's like the basis of it. Um, but yeah, a lot of what I do too, it's almost, I like to do things that lessen my routine, like
Mhm.
take up less time for
Mhm.
my routine. So sometimes there are monthly things, but at the end of the day, when I wake up in the morning, it's like a little bit less time that I
Yeah.
have to
Yep.
like get ready because I feel good.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you for coming on
Oh,
today.
thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Where can listeners find you online?
Yeah, I think Instagram is probably the best place to find me. And then I do have a website too. And,
Okay.
if you're local, you can book directly from my website too.
Perfect. And we'll link all those in the show notes.
Awesome. Thank you, Anna.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for coming on today.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for joining me on another episode of Talk Bridal to Me. I hope you have a day where you truly feel beautiful. We'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.